Reserves. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to remind the body that the reason why we're here today is because of the reckless behavior. All these cuts on Medicare, all of these cuts are because the House Democrats forced through a nearly $2 trillion spending bill. And the reason why we have the PAYGO statutory provision is because President Obama signed it into law and the House Democrats passed it. So the cuts are the result today of all the policies that Democrats have been doing since 2010. I would love to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes. Gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today we're addressing a problem that didn't even exist a week ago. It did not even exist last week. Republicans stood on this floor and we argued against the $1.9 trillion partisan package last week. There were many reasons to oppose it, but one of the most significant reasons was the fact that the bill would trigger cuts to Medicare and other essential programs. We argued that it would harm all of our constituents. I argued that it would harm my constituents in Georgia, to my friend, my fellow delegation member. This bill penalized the state of Georgia more than any state in the United States, more than any state in the nation. Georgia was punished. We lost $1.3 billion because of the funding formula, because we didn't shut down our state. We didn't destroy our economy. And the funding was based on the unemployment rate and not population. And where did that rates? Went to blue states. And what did it do to Medicare in the state of Georgia? We lost $11.5 billion that would have went to the seniors on Medicare in the state of Georgia. And where did it go? Again, it went to California. It went to New York. It went to the blue states. It went to the states that shut down their businesses and destroyed their economies. Yet the bill was pushed forward anyway. This could have all been avoided altogether. We could have crafted a bipartisan package that would not have triggered these Medicare cuts. Instead, those across the aisle resorted to forcing the bill through reconciliation. And in the end, they passed a package filled with political favors on the back of our seniors. Again, this could have been avoided. But today we need to fix this for our constituents while recognizing we have a spending problem. Now that the largest stimulus bill in our history has been signed into law, our deficit for the year will also break records. We are now projected to have a federal deficit of $3.4 trillion, and debt as a share of our GDP will be over 100% for only the second time in our country's history. My colleagues have shown little regard for actually paying for this reckless spending for political favor. That is why I urge my colleagues to find a way to pay for restoring the cuts to Medicare. And the first place I suggest looking for it is in over 90% of the last package that will not go to addressing the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, this is wrong. My colleagues know it's wrong. Let's get this fixed. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Missouri reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Panetta.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. Today I rise in support of H.R. 1868 to prevent these harmful budget cuts to vital agricultural programs that are relied on by farmers, farm workers, and food insecure families in all of our districts. If we don't pass this bill today, $29 billion in agricultural funding would be subject to these sequester cuts. Those types of cuts would zero out funding for such crucial agricultural programs like EQIP and the Conservation Stewardship Program and the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. See, in my district on the Central Coast, mid-Central Coast of California, many farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners rely on those types of helpful programs, not just to survive, Mr. Speaker, but to succeed. They use those programs to harvest their products and to be part of the climate solution. See, the producers in my district understand and appreciate the old adage, which is called usufruct, which basically says the land they use now must be kept fresh and fertile, not just for them, but for future generations. And it's these programs that contribute to their current product, and yes, that type of forward thinking. Sequester cuts would also prevent the federal government from purchasing and donating food to food banks through Section 32 purchases. After the year we had, in which food banks contributed so much to the food security of so many of my constituents, we should be doing everything we can to protect and bolster our food programs. We should also be doing everything we can to protect the production of food. But sequestration cuts would compromise many parts of the Farm Bill, like the specialty crop block grants or the agricultural research extension programs at public universities. As the co-chair of the Congressional Ag Research Caucus, I know that these types of ag research programs help our farmers meet the challenges of 2021 and will allow them to prepare for challenges of the 21st century. Mr. Speaker, as a representative from the salad bowl of the world, it's my job to ensure that my farmers and farm workers and food insecure families have all the tools that they need to live and lead healthy and productive lives. As representatives of Congress in this nation, thank you.
Chairman is recognized 30 seconds.
As representatives in Congress for this nation, it's all of our jobs to ensure that the programs for those tools and that food are here not just today, but for tomorrow. We can live up to that responsibility by supporting H.R. 1868. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the newest member of the Budget Committee, the gentleman from Mississippi.
Gentleman from Mississippi is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to H.R. 1868, the bill to prevent across-the-board direct spending cuts. It should come as no surprise to my Democrat friends. You were told during what little process we had of the $1.9 trillion spending bill that it was going to be disproportionately hurt seniors, that it was going to hurt farmers. You were told this and you ignored that, and knowing that you would have to fix it later and drive something just as irresponsibly through now. It disproportionately share of this this $2 trillion goes to urban, poorly run democratic cities and states at the expense of our rural blue-collar Americans who feed, clothe, and protect America every day. We told you this weeks ago and you ignored it. I am deeply concerned that the Democrats would enact a bill that adds $1.9 trillion to an American deficit without the support of a single Republican. Over 200 voting members of this body had no opportunity for input into this massively destructive package. The Biden administration promised the American people bipartisanship and unity. However, they unilaterally drafted and pushed this bill through without any Republican support. Now the Democrats have hastily put together a bill that jeopardizes the standing of our seniors and mortgages the future of our children. My colleague, Ranking Member Smith, reminded the Democrats of the consequences of such a dramatic increase in mandatory spending, a $36 billion cut to Medicare beginning in 2022. Democrats would rather cut benefits to American seniors in rural America than give up checks to illegal immigrants and prisoners. The Democrats have taken advantage of the need of the American people. My colleagues and I are advocating for a more responsible alternative that will remove the wasteful spending of the Biden bailout bill and protect our most vulnerable population. We must cut the billions of liberal state bailouts and ensure the money already authorized is spent responsibly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Missouri reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to remind the gentleman from Mississippi, along with all the other members of this body, that his citizens will receive in total $900 million from just the $1,400 checks. That's the average that every congressional district is going to receive. And I hope that at some point they will realize the benefits of that injection of capital into an economy that's struggling. I now am pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Connecticut, a distinguished member of the Education and Labor Committee, Mr. Courtney.
Gentleman from Connecticut is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the chairman of the Budget Committee for him and his committee staff's steady hand over the last couple of months to make sure that the American Rescue Plan was enacted last week. Mr. Speaker, in that week's time since today, up to today, the American people have had a chance to listen to the debate and evaluate for themselves what they think of the American Rescue Plan. A Morning Consult poll that came out yesterday showed 72% support for the plan, 44% among Republicans across the country. And why not? 90 million Americans on Wednesday received $1,400 checks totaling $242 billion. And for those Americans who are not connected digitally to the IRS, they are going to get their checks through the mail. For those Americans who are filing their 2020 tax returns, whose income now qualifies them for the economic impact payments, they're going to receive their check. On Monday, people who are on unemployment got an extension because of the American Rescue Plan. These are working people in the service sectors, in the commercial real estate sector, in those parts of the economy that are still hurting out there. And every no vote was a no vote in terms of people getting that critical economic help. Another vote of confidence happened on Wednesday, which is the Federal Reserve Board met, and they voted to keep their key benchmark rate at 0, not just for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but for the balance of 2021, for all of 2022, and into 2023. So for all the hysterical arguments that we're overheating the economy and inflation is going to go up, Jerome Powell, Donald Trump's nominee as chair of the Federal Reserve, who took questions for over an hour on this inflation issue, argued accurately with the battalion of economists that they have at the Federal Reserve that there is still slack in this economy, and 10 million folks on unemployment need to get this type of fiscal relief that the American Rescue Plan responsibly targeted is going to make sure that this country recovers as soon as possible. This is a routine bill today. We've done it over and over again in the last 10 years. Vote yes and make sure that this economy, as the chairman of the Federal Reserve advised us, gets the help it needs. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield 3 minutes to one of the leading doctors of the Republican conference and a great member of the Budget Committee, the gentleman from Texas.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
And I thank the gentleman for yielding. I am going to speak in opposition to 1868, but I also feel obligated to point out that you may say that the inflation rate is 0, but if you bought a gallon of gas, purchased a 2x4 at Home Depot, or bought a sack of Quikrete at Lowe's, you know that inflation is a real phenomenon. But I do rise in opposition to 1868. There was no effort made on the part of the majority party to work with Republicans on what should be a bipartisan priority, and that is provider relief. I've heard from physicians, I've heard from hospitals in Texas who've struggled financially throughout the pandemic. But the bill we have before us today is simply an excuse to wipe out the scorecard of the fiscal impact of the $1.9 trillion partisan package passed last week. And last week, Republicans warned that this would threaten cuts to Medicare, but those warnings were repeatedly ignored. So look, if the House majority really cared, if House Democrats really cared about meaningful health care provider relief, they would have worked to gain Republican support, worked with us to build the bill from the ground up. Instead, this bill is coming toward us as a Hail Mary pass right before the Medicare sequester cuts go into effect in April. As a physician, I have deep empathy for those whose medical practices have been impacted and are now struggling to stay open. I know I've helped many doctors, many clinics navigate the Provider Relief Fund over this past year. We need targeted relief for the providers that are hurting, and some are hurting more than others. So I am a co-sponsor of HR 1999, which is an alternative approach that adds over $12 billion to the Provider Relief Fund and ensures that dollars would flow to those doctors who've experienced lost revenue or increased cost. This type of financial relief has already been proven successful. We passed the CARES Act on the 27th of March last year. We know it's successful. Additionally, this alternative bill ensures that the 4% cut to Medicare providers that was included in last week's reconciliation bill as a result of statutory PAYGO does not go into effect in 2022. The American Rescue Plan Act gifted $350 billion to state and local governments that simply was not justified. Providers, our state and local communities are worthy of funding, and they should specifically benefit from those state and local dollars that are not necessary to go where they're planned to go. That's why we would like to redirect the state and local funding towards provider relief. Maintaining a strong healthcare workforce is critical to the health of this nation during normal times, and it's especially critical during a public health emergency. We should work together on the right policy solution to deliver this relief to ensure that it stands a chance of actually passing in the other body, and that should be a starting point for those discussions. And I hope we can come to such a sensible solution. I yield back to the gentleman from Missouri.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Missouri reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Illinois, a distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Chakowski.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am proud to co-sponsor H.R. 1868 to prevent arbitrary cuts to Medicare and to ensure that the American Rescue Plan is treated in the same way as previous coronavirus bills have been treated, including the CARES Act. This legislation, as we all know, is needed. This fix is needed to avoid painful cuts to our mandatory spending programs. And let's remember, the hypocrisy is overwhelming here, that the Democrats voted with Republicans in 2017 to avoid Medicare cuts as a result of the Republicans' tax scam, a $2 trillion bill, a tax cut that went mostly to the wealthy. Our healthcare workers have been working nonstop for over a year fighting this pandemic. They do not deserve a cut in Medicare payments for taking care of seniors and people with disabilities. By removing the sequester, we can ensure that providers keep their doors open and they can continue to treat their patients. Though Republicans voted against the American Rescue Plan, which they shouldn't have, I sincerely hope that today they will join us and vote to protect these programs that enjoy broad bipartisan public support and ensure that our commitment to our nation's seniors and people with disabilities are met during this public health crisis, especially now. We need to be working together, as we did for you when you were giving tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. We were not going to let Medicare suffer. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to remind the lady from Illinois that actions speak louder than words, and that she did not help the folks in 2017, that she tried to point out the hypocrisy. I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Texas.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 3 minutes.
I think the chairman and Mr. Speaker, to the lady's point about working together, Democrats did not offer any hand of bipartisanship in this ram and jam job on the $2 trillion bailout bill. They even lost Democrats on it. And so they didn't work with us. It was a pure partisan play. And there's a reason for that. It's mostly unrelated to COVID. It is bailout galore. It is a wish list of the liberals in this House, and they just pushed it through and called it in disguise COVID relief. But the fundamental principle we're talking about today is PAYGO. This is a law passed by Democrats, signed by a Democrat president, that says fundamentally, and American people understand this, if you spend beyond your means, you got to find a way to pay for it. You got to offset it, or you go into debt. The American people, if they don't pay their bills, Mr. Speaker, they get their water turned off or their electricity turned off. The IRS will hunt them down, put them in jail if they don't pay their taxes. They'll have their mortgage foreclosed, their cars repossessed. That's what happens to the American people. when they don't pay their bills. President Obama, when he signed the law, said you can't spend $1 unless you cut $1 elsewhere. I agree with him. Ms. Pelosi, our speaker, gave a speech, and she gave glowing points as she embraced wholeheartedly and full-throatedly this PAYGO. She said, it's important to our fiscal soundness, to our children and grandchildren. She said, who could oppose this great idea? She went on to say, this is investment in our children's future must be paid for, or else we're heaping a debt onto our children. 30 trillion almost and counting. 30 trillion. Who's going to pay for that? Not us, not you, not us. Our kids are going to pay for it. These are Ms. Pelosi's words, Mr. Speaker. This pay-as-you-go is part of a blueprint for fiscal responsibility, subjecting spending to the harshest scrutiny. Every federal dollar that is spent must be subject to scrutiny to make sure taxpayers get their money's worth. Bailing out union pensions, giving city and states money who horribly mismanaged their business prior to COVID, giving people more money to be on unemployment than they made in their previous job, paying people who were not economically harmed in this COVID disaster. All of these things, there is a litany of wasteful, irresponsible, and unnecessary spending. Hundreds of billions of dollars. And she says every dollar is going to be scrutinized, or we're going to stick it to our seniors. We're going to stick it to our kids. That's a profile in courage if I ever saw one. Now that's the leadership that made this country great, Mr. Speaker. These are Ms. Pelosi's words, not mine, but I agree with her. We have an opportunity here to do the right thing by our children, to offset the spending here in this $2 trillion bailout with the wasteful spending that's in there. And I gave you a list, Mr. Speaker. I plead with you and I plead with my colleagues, offset this and do right by our kids and their future in this country. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Missouri reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire as to how much time remains on both sides?
The gentleman from Kentucky has 11 and a half minutes. The gentleman from Missouri has 1¼ minute remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm now happy to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Texas, a distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank our distinguished chairman. Whenever you hear the words of Speaker Pelosi, you know that she is leading us on the fight to protect our seniors. I'm glad to co-sponsor this legislation, to be a strong supporter of being on the front seat of protecting our seniors. Whenever you hear us being demagogued from those on the other side using demagoguery, you can be assured that when they passed the tax bill, it was not having seniors as their priority. But when you hear the word Medicare, you know that Democrats are standing strong to make sure that not one dime is taken away from our seniors with Medicare. Open letter to my seniors in my district. Open message to my seniors. We will die on the spine to protect your Medicare. That is what we're doing today on the floor of the House. Not one dime will come out of your Medicare. I am proud to support H.R. 1868, which excludes the budgetary effects of the American Rescue Plan of 2021 from scorecards established by the statutory Pay-as-you-go, or PAYGO, Act of 2010, preventing across-the-board cuts to numerous direct spending programs. That's what we're doing here today. We are taking our seniors seriously. Seniors, have no fear with all of this demagoguery, because we are going to make sure that not one dime comes out of your pocket. In addition, seniors, you're going to be living in cities like Houston, where it says that Houston's share of the stimulus package is $600 million. That is going to help keep your city services going, your fire, your police, your trash pickup. Seniors, we know you call my office. These are important to you. Let me also indicate that your health care will be in good place with this particular program. Your grandchildren will be able to go back to school with almost $1 billion to the Houston Independent School District. Stimulus checks, you're not going to be ignored, seniors. You're going to be able to get stimulus checks directly into your accounts. Your grandchildren, your children will be able to get for them $3,600 for a 5-year-old, $3,000.
Gentleman has an additional 30 seconds.
I thank the gentleman. $3,000 for children above 9 years old. You'll be able to have enhanced unemployment for the young people in your life that have been unemployed. And then, of course, you may have the ability to have that local restaurant, and I fought for this, local restaurant to be open again with $28 billion. The issue of public assistance or local government assistance was something I was allowed to offer a motion to instruct. It was something that I thought that we could not abandon, but we will not abandon you as seniors. We will not let them touch one dime of Medicare as our friends on the other side have. Vote for this legislation because we are seniors first. I ask unanimous consent to place into the record the Houston article dated March 10th, 2021, $600 million for the city of Houston.
Without objection,
I yield
gentleman's
back.
time has expired. Gentleman from Missouri reserves. From Kentucky, gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
A reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, a distinguished member of the Budget Committee, Mr. Doggett.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
55 years ago, President Lyndon B. Johnson overcame sustained Republican opposition to enact Medicare. It's been a literal lifeline for millions. Those who suffered without health care before Medicare now have access to a family physician and hospital care when they need it. Former Republican Speaker Newt Gingrich in this very room plotted to let Medicare wither on the vine. Millions of Americans would have withered had he been successful. Yet generations of Republicans have sought to privatize it, cut it, weaken it, and surely some of the strongest evidence of the success of Medicare through all of these times is the claim by today's Republicans that after so many failed attempts to weaken Medicare, they are here quite amazingly claiming to be its new protectors. Of course, this comes following their understandable desperation to justify their inexplicable efforts to deny the relief that was offered by the American Rescue Plan, the survivor benefits, the unemployment, small business, rental assistance, so vitally needed, the support for getting our students back in school, the funding to keep state and local employees doing their jobs. These Republicans have resisted that rescue plan with the same fervor that they resisted Medicare in the first place. So determined were these folks to oppose anything that President Biden advances that they claim that they've come out here and they've claimed that the rescue plan means Medicare cuts, which certainly it does not. Most Medicare falls within the jurisdiction of the Ways and Means Health Subcommittee that I chair. We do need to strengthen Medicare. The latest financial report suggests that additional revenues will be needed to sustain Medicare beginning in 2026. Some of the changes that are needed are largely accounting adjustments, and others will require additional revenue. May I have additional 30 seconds?
I yield the gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman has an additional 30 seconds.
What our colleagues should be doing is coming together to work with us to ensure the permanent security of Medicare. Medicare works, but after 55 years, it needs some updates. It's not provided adequate protection against pharmaceutical price gouging. It does not cover most of dental, hearing, and vision care. And of course, too many Americans, they're just too young to be in Medicare. I believe we need to be working together to make Medicare better and more widely available to more Americans because health security is American security. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
A reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Illinois, a distinguished member of the Agriculture and Appropriations Committees, Ms. Bustos.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Yarmouth, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to support H.R. 1868. I know we've talked this morning about the importance of that bill protecting Medicare. I want to talk with you for a couple minutes here about its protection of farm supports and other direct spending as it pertains to our family farmers. As chair of the Agriculture Subcommittee on General Farm Commodities and Risk Management, this bill will protect critical resources like the Commodity Credit Corporation, resources that our family farmers depend on now more than ever. There are nearly 2 million farmers across our nation. In the district that I serve, we have close to 10,000 family farms. But throughout our nation, there is no farm that isn't touched by the Commodity Credit Corporation. Not one American farmer who wouldn't be impacted by these cuts. In the district I serve, those close to 10,000 farmers who wouldn't have more resources if this were to happen, and who would face challenges as they try to pay their bills and put food on the table. The truth is, our family farmers have seen an onslaught of challenges for years, each year worse than the one before it. Extreme weather conditions, devastated crops, unstable and uncertain trade markets that held back exports and economic growth. And throughout the past year, a global pandemic that has left many of our farmers ravaged, even as they kept fighting for fellow Americans to keep them fed. COVID-19 has impacted all of us, but thankfully we have never truly seen empty store shelves. We have our American farmers to thank for that. We have our American farmers to thank for the stable food supply and for the certainty that even after years of challenges, even at the height of this worldwide crisis, our American farmers have had our backs. Now it's time for us to have theirs. A vote against this bill is a vote to cut farm funding. I urge my colleagues to vote to protect our family farmers and vote yes on this critical bill. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky Research.
Speaker, I have no other speakers. If the ranking member has no other speakers, I'm prepared to close.
Prepared to close.
Gentleman from Kentucky Research, the gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleagues and I have introduced an alternative, a more responsible approach that protects our seniors and rolls back some of the more wasteful and absurd parts of the Democratic bailout bill. I would encourage my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to put America's seniors ahead of their special interest allies. Join us in finding a solution that protects and respects America's seniors and the working class. We will offer such a solution as a motion to recommit. If adopted, it will instruct the Committee on the Budget to consider an amendment to make the sensible cuts in waste offered in H.R. 1999, the Protect Seniors and Cut Waste Act. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of the amendment in the record immediately prior to the vote on the motion to recommit.
Without objection.
Let's put the health care of our seniors ahead of prisoners, illegal immigrants, and the political class. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the remainder of my time.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last couple of months have been an incredibly busy time, and the work that was done on the American Rescue Plan from start to finish was extraordinary, and we owe our staffs an enormous debt of gratitude. Not just the Budget Committee staff, but the staff of the 12 committees that also contributed to the drafting of the American Rescue Plan. And I'd like to take this time to read the names of the Budget Committee staff who pulled all-nighters, all weekenders, and went way beyond the call of duty and doing the work on the American Rescue Plan. Erica Appel, Ellen Bayless, Samantha Carter, Edward Etzkorn, Jose Guillen, Jocelyn Harris, Emily King, Sarah Lee, Sheila McDowell, Diana Meredith, Layla Mojan, Kimberly Overbeek, Barbara Pike, Katie Raymond, Scott Russell, Laura Santos, Raquel Spencer, Greg Waring, Alexandra Weinroth, Christy Wentworth, Jennifer Wheelock, Sam Weiss, Ted Zeggers, and Grady Stevens. I want to thank all of them personally for their work and on behalf of the House. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say this. You know, we have heard a lot of newly found concern about the deficit and the debt today. We heard it during the debates. This is the same party that drove up the deficit 4 years ago now, with a $2 trillion tax cut, most of which benefited the wealthiest Americans. And according to virtually everyone who's looked at it, didn't even come close to paying for itself. What we have done in the American Rescue Plan is give an incredible boost to the American people, and the American people who need the boost most. Not $1 in the American Rescue Plan goes to the top 1% of Americans. The vast majority goes to middle and lower income people struggling to get by. And I'm kind of amused when people talk about their states being cheated. The gentleman from Georgia talked about how Georgia was cheated. Under this American Rescue Plan, Georgia gets over $8 billion, twice as much as Georgia got under the CARES Act. That doesn't even count all of the money that's going to the Georgia citizens. And as I said, in every congressional district in this country, on average, the people, the citizens we represent will get $900 million, every congressional district. And my friend from Missouri, he talked about his family of four, and I know his math is better than this. But a family of four doesn't get $1,400, as he mentioned. Family four gets 1,400 times 4, which is $5,600. And then 2 children, depending on their ages, get at least $3,000 each. So that family of 4 is going to get $11,000 out of this bill. And to talk about future generations, I love that. I'm sure that when the national debt reached $1 billion under Abraham Lincoln, there were people saying, wow, we're laying an incredible burden on our grandchildren. And when it reached $1 trillion under Ronald Reagan, I'm sure there were people saying the same thing. And when it gets to 50 trillion, as it probably will next couple of decades, people will be saying the same thing. We've been accumulating debt for our entire history, and yet no one has ever been asked to pay for that debt, and no one ever will. So all in all, we're very proud of the American Rescue Plan. The American people love the American Rescue Plan. And this fix, which we asked for today, is something that, again, is just what the Republicans asked to do in 2017. It's a routine measure. Nobody wants to cut Medicare to providers, and certainly benefits to our citizens. So I'm sure we'll have an actually bipartisan vote on this today. And I urge all of my colleagues to support HR 1868. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Pursuant to House Resolution 233, the previous question is ordered on the bill. The question is on the engrossment and the third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to prevent across-the-board direct spending cuts and for other purposes.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Missouri seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a motion to recommit at the desk.
The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Smith of Missouri moves to recommit the bill, H.R. 1868, to the Committee on the Budget.
Pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 19, the previous question is ordered on the motion to recommit. The question is on the motion. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The noes have it. The motion is not agreed to.
Mr.
Gentleman
Speaker,
from Missouri.
I request the yeas and nays.
Pursuant to Section 3S of House Resolution 8, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
As the member designated by Congressman Brendan Boyle pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Congressman Boyle will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Bouchon of Indiana pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bouchon will vote yea on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Kirkpatrick pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Kirkpatrick will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
As a member designated by Mr. Rush pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Rush will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Mr. Brendan F. Boyle votes no by proxy. Bouchon votes aye by proxy. Mrs. Kirkpatrick votes no by proxy. Mr.
Rush votes no by proxy.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Moulton pursuant to H. Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Moulton will vote no on the motion to recommit. Safe travels. I guess we'll see you next.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Adam Smith of Washington State pursuant to H. Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Smith will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Mr. Smith of Washington. Mr. Smith of Washington votes no by proxy.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as member designated by Congressmember Vargas, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Congressmember Vargas will vote no on the motion to recommit. And Mr. Speaker, as member designated by Congressmember Napolitano, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Congressmember Napolitano will also vote no on the motion to recommit.
Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes no by proxy.
Purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Cardenas pursuant to HRes 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cardenas will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Speaker, as the House is designated by Mr. Lawson of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Lawson will vote nay on motion of reconsideration.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Bishop of Georgia pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bishop will vote no. He will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Mr. Hastings of Florida pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Hastings will vote no. He will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Where is he from? For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Representative Rogers will vote yes on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Connecticut seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Wilson pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Wilson will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Barra pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Barra will vote no on the motion to recommit. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Schneider pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Schneider will vote motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Grijalva pursuant to H-Res 8, I hereby inform the House that Mr. Grijalva will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Tennessee. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Desjardins of Tennessee, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Desjardins will vote yay on the motion to recommit. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Gates pursuant to House Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Gates will vote yay on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Cahaley pursuant H Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cahaley will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Timmons of South Carolina pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Timmons will vote yes on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. DeSagne pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. DeSagne will vote no on the motion to recommit.
What purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Wasserman Schultz pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Wasserman Schultz will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Does from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. McEachin pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. McEachin will vote no on the motion to recommit. And as the member designated by Ms. Porter pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Porter will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Peters of California pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Peters will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Florida. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Buchanan of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution Number 8, I inform the House that Mr. Buchanan will vote yes on the motion to recommit. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by the Honorable Mr. James Langevin of Rhode Island, and pursuant to House Resolution Number 8, I'd like to inform the House that Mr. Langevin will vote no on the motion to recommit H.R. 1868 to prevent across-the-board direct spending cuts and for other purposes. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Axney pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Axney will vote no on the motion to recommit. And as the member designated by Ms. Slotkin pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Slotkin will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Meng pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Meng will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Ms. Bush pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bush will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Ms. Bordeaux pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bordeaux will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Lowenthal pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Lowenthal will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Mr. Liu pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Liu will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Ms. Barragan pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Barragan will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Mr. Blumenauer pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Blumenauer will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Ms. Moore pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Moore will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Kansas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Allred pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Allred will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Mr. Cleaver pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cleaver will vote no on the motion to recommit. As the member designated by Mr. Kim pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Kim will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Williams pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Williams will vote nay on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Bonnie Watson Coleman pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Watson Coleman will vote no on the motion to recommit. And as the member designated by Mr. Albio Ceres pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Ceres will vote no on the motion to recommit. And Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Donald Payne pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Payne will vote no on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Right Honorable Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Guardino from New York, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Garbino will vote yay on the motion to recommit.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Mfume of Maryland, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Mfume will vote no on the motion to recommit.
Members voted. On this vote, the yeas are 202, the nays are 216. The motion is not adopted. The question is on the passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the nays have it. Gentleman from Maryland. Louisiana?
Yeas and nays.
Pursuant to Section 3S of House Resolution 8, the yes and nays are ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. Purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Bonnie Watson Coleman pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Watson Coleman will vote yes on H.R. 1868. As the member designated by Mr. Albio Series pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Series will vote yes on H.R. 1868. And as the member designated by Mr. Donald Payne pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Payne will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
Purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Desjardins of Tennessee, pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Desjardins will vote nay on H.R. 1868. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Mfume of Maryland pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Mfume will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Garbarino of New York, pursuant to House Resolution number 8, I inform the House that Mr. Garbarino will vote yea on passage of H.R. 1868. 86.
Does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Schneider pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Schneider will vote aye on H.R. 1868. And as the member designated by Mr. Barra pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Barra will vote aye on House Resolution 1868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Illinois seek recognition?
As a member designated by Mr. Rush pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Rush will vote yes on H.R. 1868. As a member designated by Mr. Moulton pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Moulton will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
As a member designated by Mr. Desagne pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Desagne will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Rhode Island seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Pingree of Maine pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Pingree will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
As a member designated by Mr. Vicente Gonzalez pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Vicente Gonzalez will vote aye on H.R. 1868. As the member designated by Mr. Carnes pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Carnes will vote aye on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Williams pursuant to HRES 8, I inform the House that Ms. Williams will vote yea on H.R. 1868.
I'm the second man. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Kansas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Allred pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Allred will vote yes on H.R. 1868. As the member designated by Mr. Cleaver pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cleaver will vote yes on H.R. 1868. As the member designated by Mr. Kim pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Kim will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Bouchon of Indiana pursuant to HRES 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bouchon will vote no on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
As a member designated by Congressman Brendan Boyle pursuant to HRES 8, I inform the House that Congressman Boyle will vote yea on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Buchanan of Florida pursuant to House Resolution number 8, I inform the House that Mr. Buchanan will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Moore pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House Ms. Moore will vote yes on HR 1868. As a member designated by Ms. Barragan pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Ms. Barragan will vote yes on HR 1868. As a member designated by Mr. Blumenauer pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Blumenauer will vote yes on HR 1868. As a member designated by Mr. Lowenthal pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Lowenthal will vote yes on HR 1868. As a member designated by Mr. Liu pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Liu will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as member designated by Congressmember Vargas pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Congressmember Vargas will vote yes on H.R. 1868. And Mr. Speaker, as member designated by Congressmember Napolitano pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Congressmember Napolitano will also vote yes on H.R. 1868.
Does the gentlewoman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Bush pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bush will vote yes on H.R. 1868. As the member designated by Ms. Meng pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Meng will vote yes on H.R. 1868. And as the member designated by Ms. Bordeaux pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bordeaux will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. McEachin pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. McEachin will vote yes on H.R. 1868. And as the member designated by Ms. Porter pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Porter will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
Purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
As a member designated by Mr. Bishop of Georgia pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bishop will vote yes. He will vote yes on H.R. 1868. As a member designated by Mr. Hastings of Florida pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Hastings will vote yes. He will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Grijalva pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Grijalva will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Connecticut seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Wilson pursuant to HRes 8, I inform the House that Ms. Wilson will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Lawson of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Lawson will vote yes on final passage.
The gentlewoman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Axney pursuant to HRes 8, I inform the House that Ms. Axney will vote yes on HR 1868. As the member designated by Ms. Slotkin pursuant to HRes 8, I inform the House that Ms. Slotkin will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers pursuant to House Res 8, I inform the House that Representative Rogers will vote no on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Kirkpatrick pursuant to H.R.S. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Kirkpatrick will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by the Honorable Mr. James Langevin of Rhode Island and pursuant to H.R. 8, I'd like to inform the House that Mr. Langevin will vote yes on final passage of H.R. 1868 to prevent across-the-board direct spending cuts and for other purposes. Thank you.
I'll wait till he's ready. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Wasserman Schultz pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Wasserman Schultz will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Adam Smith of Washington State pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Smith will vote yes on H.R. 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Peters of California pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Peters will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose, for what purpose, for what purpose is it?
He's not paying attention. I'm looking right at him.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Timmons of South Carolina pursuant to HRes 8, I inform the House that Mr. Timmons will vote no on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Cahaley pursuant to H Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cahaley will vote yes on HR 1868.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Gates pursuant to House Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Gates will vote nay on HR 1868.
246, and the nays are 175. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The chair asks that all members in the chamber, as well as members and staff throughout the Capitol, to rise for a moment of silence in honor of the victims of the horrific shootings in Georgia this week, and in solidarity with all members of the AAPI community facing discrimination and violence. I'm doing it. Thank you. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from New York, Mr. Meeks, to suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 134, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title.
House Resolution 134, resolution condemning the military coup that took place on February 1st, 2021 in Burma and the Burmese military detention of civilian leaders, calling for the release of all those detained and for those elected to serve in Parliament to resume their duties and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to the resolution? Members will record their vote by recorded device.
For what reason does the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Mfume of Maryland, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Mfume will vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what reason does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
As the member designated Mr. Bishop of Georgia, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bishop will vote yes on H-Res 134. As the member designated by Mr. Hastings of Florida, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Hastings will vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Indiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Bouchon of Indiana pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Bouchon will vote yay on H.R. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona seek recognition?
As the member designated by Ms. Kirkpatrick, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House Ms. Kirkpatrick will vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers pursuant to House Res 8, I inform the House that Representative Rogers will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. DeSaulnier pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. DeSaulnier will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, you hear me? Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Timmons of South Carolina pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Timmons will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Adam Smith of Washington State pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Smith will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Peters of California pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Peters will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Rhode Island seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Pingree of Maine pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Ms. Pingree will vote yes on House Resolution 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Carnes pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Carnes will vote aye on H.Res. 134. As the member designated by Mr. Vicente Gonzalez pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Mr. Vicente Gonzalez will vote aye on H.Res. 134.
I know. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Massachusetts seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Bush pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bush will vote yes on H.Res. 134. As the member designated by Ms. Meng pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Meng will vote yes on H.Res. 134. And as the member designated by Ms. Bordeaux pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Bordeaux will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Slotkin pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Slotkin will vote yes on H.Res. 134. As the member designated by Ms. Axney pursuant to H.Res. 8, I inform the House that Ms. Axney will vote yes on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Gates pursuant to House Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Gates will vote no on H.Res. 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Massachusetts seek recognition? For what purpose does the gentleman from Indiana seek recognition?
As the member designated by Mr. Cahaly pursuant H Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cahaly will vote yes on H Resolution 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Ms. Wasserman Schultz pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Wasserman Schultz will vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member designated by Mr. Guardino of New York, pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Guardino will vote yay on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as a member designated by Mr. Lawson of Florida, pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Lawson will vote yay on House Resolution 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Bonnie Watson Coleman pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Watson Coleman will vote yes on H-Res 134. And as the member designated by Mr. Albio Series pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Series will vote yes on H-Res 134. And as the member designated by Mr. Donald Payne pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. Payne will vote yes on H-Res 134. And finally, as the member designated by Ms. Mikey Sherrill pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Sherrill will vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member designated by Mr. Buchanan of Florida pursuant to House Resolution number 8, I inform the House that Mr. Buchanan will vote yes on House Resolution 134. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as member designated by Congressmember Vargas pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Congressmember Vargas will vote yes on H-Res 134. And Mr. Speaker, as member designated by Congressmember Napolitano pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Congressmember Napolitano will also vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Grijalva pursuant to H-Res 8, I hereby inform the House that Mr. Grijalva will vote yes on House Resolution 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, from Virginia, as the member designated by Mr. Blumenauer of Oregon, pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House Mr. Blumenauer will vote yes on HRS 134. As the member designated by Ms. Moore of Wisconsin, pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House Ms. Moore will vote yes on HRS 134. As the member designated by Ms. Barragan of California, pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House Ms. Barragan will vote yes on HRS 134. As the member designated by Dr. Lowenthal of California, pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Dr. Lowenthal will vote yes on HRS 134. As the member designated by Colonel Liu of California, pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Colonel Liu will vote yes on HRS 134.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
As the member designated by Congressman Brendan Boyle pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Congressman Boyle will vote yea on HRS 134.
What purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Desjardins of Tennessee, pursuant to HRes 8, I inform the House that Mr. Desjardins will vote yea on HRes 134. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Barra pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Barra will vote aye on House Resolution 134. And Mr. Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Schneider pursuant to House Resolution 8, I inform the House that Mr. Schneider will vote aye on House Resolution 134.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Virginia seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. McEachin pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Mr. McEachin will vote yes on H-Res 134. And as the member designated by Ms. Porter pursuant to H-Res 8, I inform the House that Ms. Porter will vote yes on H-Res 134.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Kansas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Mr. Allred pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Allred will vote yes on HRS 134. As the member designated by Mr. Cleaver pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Cleaver will vote yes on HRS 134. As the member designated by Mr. Kim pursuant to HRS 8, I inform the House that Mr. Kim will vote yes on HRS 134.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, as the member designated by Ms. Williams pursuant to HRES 8, I inform the House that Ms. Williams will vote yes on HRES 134.
On this vote, the yeas are 398, the nays are 14, and 1 is present. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Nevada seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to remove Congressman Clay Higgins from H.R. 1346, the Hospitality and Commerce Jobs Recovery Act.
Without objection, so ordered. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I send to the desk a resolution and ask unanimous consent for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 257, resolution requiring each member, officer, and employee of the House of Representatives to complete a program of training in workplace rights and responsibilities each session of each Congress and for other purposes.
Is there objection to the consideration of the resolution? Without objection, the resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to take from the Speaker's table the bill, H.R. 1276, with the Senate amendment thereto, and concur in the Senate amendment.
The clerk will report the title of the bill and the Senate amendment.
H.R. 1276, an act to authorize the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to furnish COVID-19 vaccines to certain individuals and for other purposes. Senate
Consent to
amendment.
dismiss with the reading, Madam Speaker.
Without objection, the reading is dispensed with. Is there objection to the request of the gentleman from California? Without objection, the Senate amendment is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
I ask to address the House and revise and extend my remarks for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
I want to take this brief moment to salute Latrice Powell. Okay, I'm sorry. Are you?
The gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
All right, thank you. I'd like to take this moment to recognize Latrice Powell. We are humbled by her service. I wear on my jacket, Lady Freedom. I would argue that Latrice Powell is our Sojourner Truth because she's a pioneer and has made an enormous difference in this house that is a people's house. She truly is a representative of the people. With that in mind, I thank her so very much for all that she's done. And I must take this separate moment, again, as she knows, to honor those who died in Atlanta, to honor them for the vile way in which they lost their life, to say that those women, Asian American women, really were the victims of hate crimes. Why? Because women, gender can be a hate crime. And I'd only say to my colleague, a friend of mine, yes, from Texas, in the midst of pain, to talk about a rope and an oak tree as a tradition of Texas, lynching is absurd, unacceptable, and I denounce. And I apologize for any hurt that was given to the Asian American community. I ask my colleague to apologize, and I ask us to join together against hate crimes. Thank you.
The gentlewoman's time is up. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without a rejection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in memory of Mitch Stone. He was a University of Cincinnati football superfan and an inspirational young man who passed away years after his battle with brain cancer. In 2009, at age 11, Mitch Stone was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. The Cincinnati Bearcats football team took Mitch in as one of their own and saw him through his treatments. Mitch found strength and support through the UC Bearcats football team, and they found strength in him. Mitch went on to attend the University of Cincinnati, where he earned a bachelor's degree in 2020. He was a Kolodzik Business Scholar, an honors program at the Carl H. Lindner College of Business. Mitch used his experience to start his own foundation called Mitch's Mission, which helped children overcome their own health challenges. Mitch's death is a tragedy that we continue to mourn, but his life is a testimony to the good in this world. His legacy and the positive effects of his works will live on. Rest in peace, Mitch, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. What purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, before COVID-19, more than 40% of San Diego kids were already living in families experiencing poverty. Childhood poverty was a problem before COVID-19, and we know it's only worsened through this pandemic. America's kids deserve better. That's why I was so proud to fight for them through the American Rescue Plan and so proud to see the bill signed into law last week. The American Rescue Plan makes historic investments to increase the child tax credit and support our child care infrastructure to help working families and our care workers. These investments will be transformational, cutting childhood poverty in half and lifting a heavy burden off the shoulders of so many parents. Today, I celebrate this progress, and today I commit myself to working to support the 5 million American children who will still experience poverty. Let's make the child tax credit increases permanent. Let's revitalize our child care infrastructure, and let's do right by America's kids. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Nebraska seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My district in Nebraska is home to many Native American tribes, including the Winnebago in the northeast corner of the state. And it's nestled, Madam Speaker, along the Missouri River bottoms at the beginning of the Great Plains in a beautiful setting of rolling hills. This land, this tribal land, has been an integral part of Nebraska's history and culture. But several decades ago, land belonging to the Winnebago was appropriated by the Army Corps of Engineers for development. In 1976, a federal court found that the United States and the Corps lacked the authority to take this land through eminent domain. It's time to make this right. So the Winnebago Land Transfer Act is an important bill to return to the Winnebago this piece of land. Hunters will be able to continue to enjoy this prime spot along the Missouri River through the Winnebago Tribe Wildlife and Parks Program. And so I'm appreciative of the effort, the bipartisan effort here of our colleagues, Darren Soto of Florida, Cerise Davis of Kansas, as well as Randy Feenstra of Iowa, to once again make this right. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, last weekend, I visited women-owned businesses in Shakopee, and I had the pleasure of meeting Elise Steger, who owns Chakra Yoga and Fitness. Throughout this past year, Elise has done everything she can to comply with COVID restrictions while continuing to pay her employees and keep her business open. With the help of the Paycheck Protection Program loans, she has also turned to creative solutions like virtual classes, but she's been able to keep her business going. The Paycheck Protection Program has served as a lifeline to small businesses like Elise's, but in less than 2 weeks, it's due to expire. This week, we passed legislation in the House on a bipartisan basis to extend this critical program through May 31st. We must ensure that that extension becomes law. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Iowa seek recognition?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize a local hero in my hometown of Ottumwa, Iowa. This coming Wednesday, March 24th, Mary Margaret Butler of Ottumwa will be recognized as a 2021 Hero of the Heartland by the American Red Cross. Mary Margaret is being recognized for founding Whatsoever You Do, Inc., a nonprofit that has worked tirelessly on creating shelters for the homeless in southeastern Iowa. For years now, Whatsoever You Do has helped hundreds with basic needs such as food, clothing, and housing. Across the country, the Red Cross works every day through programs and services related to disaster relief, the military, health and safety, and helping the homeless. The Hero of the Heartland Awards recognizes outstanding individuals who demonstrate courage, compassion, selflessness, and work to better and help their neighbors and communities. I am proud to not only represent Mary Margaret Butler in Congress, but am proud to call her a neighbor. Thank you, Mary Margaret, for making Ottumwa a better place to live. Additionally, I'd like to wish a happy birthday to two other amazing women of integrity, selflessness, and compassion and courage, my Chief of Staff, Tracy Gubler, and my daughter, Taylor Miller Meigs. Madam Speaker, I yield back my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I desire to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from Texas is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you're a son of the segregated South, when you've heard your mother called girl and your father called boy, when you've had to go to the back door, when you've had the Klan to burn a cross on your property, you know hate when you see it. You know what a hate crime is when it takes place. What happened in Georgia was hate personified. It was a hate crime. I will march with the people who will be opposed to this. I will stand with them. We cannot allow this kind of injustice to go unchallenged. It is better to stand alone than not stand at all. This is a hate crime, and we must seek justice for those victims, and we must demand that these persons who are calling these viruses by names associated with people, that they ought to stop, and we ought to demand it. I do so. I demand that they stop. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I rise and you ask of unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman from is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, there is nothing an American will not do to defend his country. I rise today in defense of my homeland. I am angry, not just for the destruction of American values perpetrated by those on the left, but I am angry because my colleagues simply do not seem to care. They do not care that our border is non-existent, that 6,000 criminals cross into our country daily. They do not care that 64% of federal arrests are of illegal immigrants. And they do not care that America's welfare and infrastructure system simply cannot handle this influx of criminal immigrants. They do not care because to them, power is all that matters. I have a message to the power hungry and the partisan. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It is in the nature of Americans to be kind. It is in our nature to be gentle and loving. But know this, when it comes to the matter of protecting our friends, our family, and our heartland, do not trifle with this representative democracy. For we the people will not stop. We will never back down. We will give our everything to protect those dear to us.
Gentleman's time has expired.
This is our republic. Finish the wall.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Wisconsin seek recognition?
I'd like to speak for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
We are now being sent home for 3 weeks. I don't know if it's coincidence or not that we're being sent home when we have such a problem at our border, and we just got done voting on a few immigration bills. I'm particularly concerned. All of us congressmen should have a to-do list over the next 3 weeks. I want to give the press corps a to-do list. Right now, our Border Patrol is under a gag order in which they cannot educate the press or congressman as to what is really going on. This at a time in which you have almost 3 times as many people trying to get across the border as this time last year, and we have huge numbers of unaccompanied minors down there. The press should be outraged at this gag order. I have been at the border 4 times so far over the last couple of years, and it's always very illuminating what the Border Patrol can say to us. Now, like we're in some totalitarian state, they are not allowed to speak to us. I don't care whether you care about the government benefits, the unaccompanied minors, the drug trafficking, the human trafficking, the money the drug cartels are making on the illegal immigration. We should want to know, and we can't know unless the Border
The
Patrol
gentleman's
tells
time
us.
has expired.
Please wake up, sleeping
The
press corps.
gentleman's
Thank
time
you.
has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Last year, Portland, Oregon cut $16 million from their police budget. This has led to a 20-fold increase, unfortunately, in deadly shootings. Mayor Wheeler has been forced to reverse course now and ask for more funding for police. Similar to this, the Biden administration is having to reverse course due to the crisis on the border. Now, many are getting hung up on using the word crisis, so is FEMA now involved, and they deal with disasters, hence the Biden border disaster. Less than 2 months in, the border is worse it's been than in 2 decades. And now, Biden has been forced to reverse course and asked Mexico to help control the flow of migrants once again after previously dismantling the Remain in Mexico policy. Also on his first day in the Biden administration, they issued a proclamation to halt all border construction, despite Congress funding it and demanding it be built. Now, just yesterday, the administration has said it was moving forward with border construction. Well, border wall, good. As they're learning in Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, the Biden administration is learning law and order is also required on our border, or you get disaster. I yield back.
Thank you. Are there any further requests for 1 minute speeches? Before the House of Communications.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, Madam, I write to respectfully tender my resignation as a member of the Joint Economic Committee, effective immediately. It has been an honor to serve in this capacity. Signed sincerely, Darren LaHood.
Without objection, the chair recognizes the announces the Speaker's appointment pursuant to 15 U.S.C. 10224A and the order of the House of January 4th, 2021 of the following member on the part of the House to the Joint Economic Committee.
Mr. Arrington of Texas to rank after Ms. Herrera Butler of Washington.
The chair announces the Speaker's appointment pursuant to Section 4E of the House Resolution 8, 117th Congress in the order of the House of January 4th, 2021 of the following member to the Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress.
Mr. Joyce of Ohio to rank after Mr. Latta of Ohio.
The Speaker's appointment pursuant to Section 4F of House Resolution 8, 117th Congress, and the order of the House of January 4th, 2021, of the following member to the Select Committee, Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis.
Mrs. Miller Meeks of Iowa.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 4th, 2021, the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Clyburn, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for recognizing me. I ask unanimous consent that all members have up to 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and submit extraneous materials on the subject of my special order today.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, last March, as a tragic failure of the Trump administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic was becoming very apparent, the House Democratic Caucus held a conference call to discuss the crisis.
recalling the lessons of history like the aftermath of World War I and the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, and World War II, that it is usually the least of these among us that are the hardest hit during these crises and the last to recover after these crises are over, if they are able to recover at all. I expressed at that time to the caucus that the legislation before us offered a tremendous opportunity to restructure things in our vision. I was referring then, as I often do, to the vision expressed in our Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag of liberty and justice for all. Shortly after the media reported these comments, Senator McConnell, the majority leader of the Senate, derided them on the Senate floor. Referring to me by position, he declared, and I quote him here, "This is not a political opportunity, it is a national emergency." I wholeheartedly agree with the now minority leader of the Senate that the coronavirus pandemic was and remains a national emergency. But because the previous administration and Senate Republicans failed to address it with the appropriate urgency and a vision of liberty and justice for all, the American people, through the political process last November, entrusted Democrats to an opportunity to build back with a better and more equitable vision for the future of our great country. The American Rescue Plan has begun that process, and it is enjoying widespread bipartisan support across the entire spectrum of the country. And it did not get a single Republican vote in the House or the Senate. Because of the use of the budget process commonly called reconciliation, Republicans were not able to block the filibuster the American Rescue Plan. And that is proven to be a good thing. But the Senate Minority Leader and several of his colleagues seem to be hell-bent on using archaic Senate procedures to allow the minority in the Senate to block any legislation designed to protect the voting and civil rights of our country's minority citizens as we continue our pursuit toward the fulfillment of liberty and justice for all. We have been here before. During the 1940s and 50s, the Senate filibuster was used to kill civil rights legislation and protect Jim Crow laws. Today, Senate Republican leaders are employing the same tactics to obstruct voting rights and civil rights legislation. Their efforts are designed to gain power for their party by suppressing political participation by minorities. The minority leader has threatened that if Senate Democrats modify the filibuster rules to do to him as he did to President Obama, he will resort to scorched earth tactics. This threat of scorched earth tactics by the Senate Minority Leader in defiance of the American democracy is reminiscent of Mississippi burning, which was highlighted by the lynching of 3 civil rights workers who were simply registering Black voters in Mississippi in June 1964. They were murdered by the KKK with the cooperation of law enforcement officials to keep them from assisting minority citizens who simply wanted to vote. It was 44 days before their bodies were located and 4 decades before anyone faced legal consequences for their deaths. Today, Republicans are using the big lie about the 2020 elections as a pretext to advance a litany of minority voting suppression laws. They know that our vision of liberty and justice for all enjoys majority support among voters. So they seek to suppress enough votes so that their oppressive policies and bankrupt ideas can prevail. The minority leader wants to allow a minority of his minority to block measures that will prevent a return to bygone days. To confront this threat, the Senate must eliminate the 60-vote threshold to end the filibuster on voting rights and civil rights legislation. Just as Mississippi burning was met with the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, the threat of scorched earth must be met with For the People Act and the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. I didn't march in the streets and spent nights in jail as a young man to find myself fighting the same battles generations later. But it appears the minority leader and his Republican colleagues are preparing to retread old ground. And I am prepared to stand my ground. To the minority leader and his colleagues, I say, this is not a political opportunity. This is a national emergency. Since this country's inception, equal rights for people of color have been restricted by those in power who seek to hold on to power by using their power to deny the greatness of this country to those who do not look like them. Extending debate on legislative issues is one thing, but when it comes to rights rooted in the Constitution, the filibuster has no place. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 4th, 2021, the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schreikert, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Going to do a couple things right now. One of the first ones is a little conversation about someone we lost in my community that actually was a friend, a neighbor, had impact in ways that's hard to describe. And I desperately wish the members of this body could have spent time with him and his wife. It's Reverend Dr. Professor C.T. Wright. What was so unique about him is he was a big man. He had a voice that carried, and you would actually have conversations with him and realize just how incredibly brilliant he was. He was born in Georgia. He struggled and worked his way up. He ended up with a PhD in history from Boston College. He became a civil rights leader. And yet when you would talk to him about that, Reverend Wright, Dr. Wright, actually often wouldn't refer to himself as a civil rights leader. He would say, I want to lead for humanity. He loved people. It was a different view. He actually took his struggles and his success and his academic prowess and said, we're going to make people's lives better. Why would you dare focus on the color of their skin? I remember one of the most interesting conversations I had with him where he and I were in the back of the room and talked, and he actually saw many of, actually almost an example of what we just saw on the floor, the discussions of politics and race, and saying, David, it's class, it's opportunity that divides us. It's not our color, it's our opportunity. Dr. Wright was just a powerful, brilliant man. And you see his wife there, Mary. They were married in 1974. Mary was the epitome of love. I mean, how many of us in our lives have that one person where your little girl, I'm blessed to have a 5-year-old, but even when she was younger, she would see Mary, Mary would sort of scream, and the two of them would run over and hug each other. Just the epitome of love. And that they made them incredibly powerful as you felt good by just knowing Dr. Wright and Mary Wright in your community. The other thing it also made him unique, he was a passionate conservative. He was a Republican elector. He was the chairman of our clemency board. He was on my community school board. He was brilliant. He cared about humanity. He ran charities and foundations to help all people, to help people in the continent of Africa, but even people all through our community. And he was a powerful force for good because he was good, because he was passionate, because he was caring. And we've lost both Mary and Dr. Wright last year. I'm going to put in a much more detailed, because his CV, his history goes on page after page, and we'll put that in the congressional record. But it's individuals like this that bring us together, but also make us better. And it breaks my heart that more will not actually get to spend time with him, because both he and Mary, after a couple minutes with him, you felt different. And the last thing I will say, he loved to give the opening prayer at Republican meetings. And what was always so fascinating is you'd watch the room, and the room ends up standing up, clapping, and I was waiting for an altar call. Now, I'm Catholic, so I'm not used to the concept of an altar call, but watching someone be able to have such energy and vigor and enthusiasm and love for people and love for believing that conservatism is actually how you free people. He made an impact, and made an impact on my life, my family's life, my community, my state, and I believe he made an impact on this country. Madam Speaker, I wanted to do a handful of other things because, with the craziness of our schedule, we haven't had a chance to sort of walk through a lot of policy thoughts, but there was one that's been bugging me. So I have the hour, so I was going to share something that's just been in my craw for a while. Do we all remember a few years ago, ancient history? In politics, we seem to have the, shall we say, the attention span of a gnat. one of the pop culture debates we on the right and the left were having was something called net neutrality. The Democrats were all into net neutrality, even though I will debate most of this body had no idea what actual net neutrality was. And I want to sort of argue that thank heaven, thank the internet gods, that the Democrats' net neutrality push only lasted 1 year, are